All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back to my channel for another video. Today, I am going to be talking about one of my favorite writers, one of the writers who had a huge impact on my approach to the craft early on, and that is Ernest Hemingway. The quotes that I'll be talking about are from this book. It's titled Ernest Hemingway on Writing. And when I started taking creative writing seriously and really digging into it, this was one of the first books I bought. The book contains a number of quotes, excerpts taken from Hemingway's fiction, be it his novels or his short stories, as well as some of his letters and lectures. And they're arranged in 13 chapters with titles like What Writing Is and Does, The Qualities of a Writer, The Pain and Pleasure of Writing, What to Write About, Advice to Writers. So this book, really, it's of anybody who is either interested in writing as a craft, interested in creative writing, or somebody who's interested in reading Hemingway. Being able to soak up a great artist's approach and some of the tips that he learned, I think it gave me a lens through which to understand my own writing process, and that was kind of the beginning of whatever journey I'm on right now. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to be talking about two quotes in the first chapter, and the first chapter is titled What Writing Is and Does. The quote is as follows: I'm trying to make, before I get through, a picture of the whole world, or as much of it as I have seen, boiling it down always, rather than spreading it out thin. So why does this quote stand out in my mind? Why do I like it? Because it emphasizes, what Hemingway was trying to do when he wrote, and what I think all writers are inevitably trying to do, and maybe artists more generally, and that's to make a picture of the world, but a picture of the world that's specific and particular to the artist's own lived experiences. But it doesn't stop there. Fiction isn't merely the reporting of everyday life experiences as they happened to the author. Hemingway's idea of fiction is about distilled truth, taking a wide collection of memories and distilling everything down to parts that can be used in fictional works. And that always strikes me as so profound because it emphasizes the communication between specific experiences in the lives of individuals and universal truths that transcend the life experiences of single people and are able to say something larger about humans as a group, as a whole. Doing that, creating great stories, telling great stories, it begins first and foremost with the artist's mining of his or her life experiences for meaningfully potent truths and finding details in their memories of universal significance. And I want to talk more specifically about this quote but it's really hard. What it's really about, in my opinion, this idea of what writing is, it's about how are great ideas made? How are they produced? Great writers want to make a picture of the world as they see it, as it unfolds itself before them. But how does that happen? I think really the most that can be said about it is, in the second half of this excerpt, which is boiling it down always rather than spreading it out thin. This idea of taking lived experience and again, distilling it down into something that is concentrated and focused and particular. This is what makes great writing great writing. It could be about anything. I mean, in The Old Man and the Sea, Hemingway's great prose is about an old man who goes out fishing and catches a monster fish and then tries bringing it back to land. But the details that he uses, transcend the specific events themselves. And you can imagine how, a writer inevitably draws on lived experience, even if they distort their lived experience to kind of tell a story. But what the final product ends up looking like is something it's an amalgamation of collected experience, of the artist's lived experience that's arranged in such a way so as to transcend the artist themselves, to communicate something beautiful and something meaningful to the reader or the audience or the listener. And this idea of distilling everyday life experiences, I think, brings us to an idea of Hemingway's that he was obsessed with, which is the idea of what is true, and more importantly, of getting what is true on the page. Which brings me to the other quote that I'm going to talk about during this video. The quote is as follows: "All good books are alike in that they are truer than if they had really happened, and after you are finished reading one, you will feel that all that happened to you, and afterwards it all belongs to you. The good and the bad, the ecstasy, the remorse and sorrow, the people and the places, and how the weather was." What this means to me is that great books require precision and the meaningful potency of details which real life, as we experience it every day, couldn't possibly offer. Great books are carefully constructed ecosystems of interconnected and interdependent meaning. I mentioned The Old Man and the Sea earlier. Now, what are the odds that if you go to Cuba and you rent a little dinghy and you take some line and you push off ashore and you go out and throw the line in the water, that you're going to catch this magnificent beast and have the struggle of a lifetime, which reveals some deep and profound truth about what it means to be human and what it means to live a long life and to struggle. Unfortunately, the odds are pretty low. They're kind of stacked against you. And that, I think, is the beauty of literature. You can read The Old Man and the Sea, and like the quote says, and afterwards, it all belongs to you. The pictures the words produce become uniquely yours. It's as though you experienced the story, the event itself. This is something I think more people should be told. This is a general point that I want to make. The idea that great books, when you read them, great stories that really touch you, that really move you, what's happening is you, the reader, are processing carefully and precisely distilled truths, and you're storing it as almost vividly hallucinated life experience. And this is the beauty of literature. It's the artist's attempt to take a vast array of life experiences and to boil those experiences down and to organize them in terms of what is meaningfully consistent and meaningfully relevant, to tell a single story that is somehow comprised of a multitude of life experiences. Hemingway was famous for his reliance on his memory. Hemingway's writing career, for the most part, was taking memories and boiling them down into meaningfully potent details. And I know I've used the word potent like 1,000 times, but I think it's the perfect word for trying to nail down what is so special and so unique about great books. It's that they go beyond the details themselves. They're truer than if they really happened, because there's a kind of a meaningful logic that directs great books forward, that moves their plots forward. So what writing is, I think it's the distillation of truth. It's distilling truth into its most essential linguistic parts. And it's by that process that sentence to sentence process of distilling truth, that great stories are told. And I think that really highlights why it's so important to read, why reading fiction can be so beneficial. When we sit down with a great book, we absorb pieces of that book. We absorb parts of the story as though they happened to us. Yes, we absorb the weather and the ecstasy and the sorrow and the good and the bad, but it becomes a memory for anybody who's ever read a great book that's especially long. The first thing that comes to my mind is something, one of Dostoevsky's great novels, or In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, is when you sit down and engage with a great piece of literature, something that's long, you actually end up growing with it. You live with the ideas themselves, and they change you. And what that looks like is, years later, you still have the memory lingering in the back of your head of the struggles of the characters and, kind of general points throughout the story. And I think that's what Hemingway means when he says that after you are finished reading one, you will feel that all that happened to you, and afterwards it all belongs to you. So in closing, I'll just say that I think, there's something to be said about reading nonfiction, about always trying to, learn new, objectively true things. But I think the unique beauty to reading literature, to spending time with great works of fiction, is that we, the readers, are processing, carefully and meticulously arranged details, this, again, distilled truths, and they're stored as life experiences, as memories. Let's ask ourselves, what do the greatest writers have in common? And I would say that one of the most fundamental things that they all have in common is that the memories they leave us with when we close their books stay with us, and they follow us, and they grow with us, and they teach us even after we've closed the book. I think that's part of why fiction is so powerful and what can make reading literature so rewarding. So hopefully this video was useful. Hopefully you found it interesting. With this video series, I'm hoping to teach people who are interested in developing their ability to write creatively. I want to show people who are interested in developing their ability to write creatively why Ernest Hemingway is such an important writer to me. And I also hope that, maybe if you're not interested in creative writing, maybe you just want to read great books, I'm hoping that maybe this can function as a kind of jumping off point for enjoying Hemingway's fiction, getting some glimpse of the artist's approach to the craft. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you found it useful, please like, comment, and or subscribe, and I will see you next time.